Oh, the summit's going to happen.
Yeah, we were working on that today, mapping out like where everything's going to be at and that kind of nonsense. So,
all right. Hey, people, you're not going to be able to see me for this podcast because of the camera situation. But hello, welcome to Practical Shooting After Dark. My name is Ben. On deck today, as you can see here next to me, if you're watching the video feed, you got Joe Park.
Hi, everyone.
Or we might call him GMJP.
No, I would prefer you did not do that, sir.
No. Sure.
That's true.
And on deck also, Tyler Turner from the great state of Georgia.
Hey, guys.
Well, we got us a bang-up podcast planned for this evening.
We do?
No, we actually do. So, Tyler, you were set on a mission. Your mission that was, you said it yourself, like no one put you up to it. You volunteered. The mission found you. It was, hey, why don't you be the guy driving the bus on the Mike Foley interview for the presidential elections? Right?
Yeah, I was prepped and ready to do that with Joel.
You're locked and loaded, my man.
Yeah, I was ready.
Well, what the fuck happened? Where's the Mike Foley interview? The elections are well underway. They're basically over at this point. But by the time people hear this, I think they will be over. What?
Yeah, I was going to ask you when this dropped, like if you were going to put it ahead of the queue, because if not, then yeah, it's going to be over.
I can put it up in the queue, but it's not. If you're trying to affect
no,
that will not be successful.
No, I don't see any point in it, because I think anyone who's active and engaged in USPSA has already voted. I mean, I got the notice. I got the thing in my email, and I voted like 10 minutes after I received it.
Yeah, I got mine before I left, so last week. I guess time doesn't matter now when people are listening to this, but yeah.
The show's timeless, is what you're saying.
There you go.
But my understanding is that, Joel, you were kind of the logistics man, and you initially reached out to.
Well, hold on. Let's just back up. So Tyler was going to be I wasn't going to interview Foley. Reason there's pretty obvious. I don't want him to make him uncomfortable. So let's have somebody else do that.
Yeah.
Because people wanted it. The people wanted the Foley interview to happen. I
messaged Mike, just said that, asked him if he'd be willing to be interviewed. It would be Tyler and I. That Ben wouldn't be a part of it, and basically, I'd be running the recording. We wouldn't make him, like, hey, if you'd be willing to do this, we would like to interview you. And so he was traveling, and he said he would get back to me at the time when he was available. When
was this? Give people some sort of a timeline. Just because people this is what people wanted. Okay, so I guess we're answerable on some level.
May 10th.
Okay, so this is 60, 70 days ago. By the time people hear this, might be 90 days ago. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, and then Tyler, you messaged Foley as well.
Yeah, I had not messaged him since. He just said he would get back to me at the time, so I didn't.
Yeah, just so one of us wasn't hounding and harassing him about it. I sent him my own message back on June 7th, asking basically if he had found space in his schedule, and that went unread for quite a while, and just totally coincidentally, as far as I can tell, this morning he wrote me back and said scheduling wouldn't work out, and so
for this election cycle, I think.
that his availability would not free up at any point during the election cycle.
Well,
so bottom line is it's not going to happen.
Tyler, as luck would have it, you and I kind of anticipated the scheduling not working out. So I learned that you prepared quite heavily for this interview.
No, I did. I treated it seriously. I did quite a bit of research, and I formulated, kind of a breakdown of questions and topics that I hope to address with with Mike. I read every board minutes meeting, or the minutes from the board meetings
Oh, wow.
of his tenure. Yeah, everyone. And listened to basically every podcast I could find that he's ever been on, including the old Practical Pistol show. Yeah, and I, dug up old Facebook threads, old Duty Project threads. So, I mean, I did a lot of research. I mean, it's
Yeah, you
fine.
really did.
It was
So I guess like the alternate plan, because like I said, I thought that Mike's availability might not look too good for this. It don't know why, just thought it might not. I thought, hey, why don't you just like whatever questions you had for Mike or whatever things you found that you like, hey, this is interesting. Why don't you just like go through that, like the high points or the questions that you'd have, or whatever you'd want to put to Mike. You know what I mean?
mm,
How's that sound?
sounds good. I think we should start with the positive always, which is, I think Mike has done a really nice job running the organization, like dollars and cents, and cleaning up headquarters. That was a big part of his pitch. Back, was it 2015? Yeah, that campaign was in 2015.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think his byline was, hey, from like everything after the beep is fine. We just got to fix this, the headquarters situation.
Yeah. Well, and headquarters, I think some debts were unpaid. I think the budget was not exactly kosher. And that was part of the pitch, was we need to clean up the finances. And, to be fair, I think he's done an admirable job of cleaning up the finances and cleaning up HQ.
What kind of stuff are you pointing to what makes you think that?
Well,
I'm not disagreeing. I just want
Yeah.
to like kind of establish.
I believe one situation in particular was that vendors from one nationals at least, and maybe multiple, weren't getting paid, and this was like months and months down the line. Basically, that USPSA was not meeting its financial obligations, and I don't think that's an issue anymore. I think whoever needs to get paid gets paid. I think they cut out some they cut some flack out of HQ, and they seem to be more streamlined. Like, they created positions or modified positions that made more sense. Like, they have a dedicated finance guy now. They have a dedicated marketing guy. It just seems like structurally, it makes more sense to me. Just at first glance, I'm not an expert on corporations and good business practices, but it seems to me that the organization is better off structurally and financially now.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
So what other interesting points did you dig up?
Well, I wanted to briefly review, we've introduced a couple new divisions under his watch, or in Carry Optics, that was right before he came on, but he kind of, I think, molded it and kind of shepherded it in a different direction than originally, because originally it was like 10 rounds, and now it's pretty different than when we started. So I want to talk about CO, PCC, maybe address common concerns you hear about PCC. There's a lot of consternation about that, so I want to kind of banter back and forth with him.
Well, like about what? So let me ask you this. So in the thing you did, like as far as looking back at all the podcasts that he's talked about, is it fair to say that after Mike got elected, it was a kind of a common talking point about, hey, doing PCC now, PCC is cool and participation is up. But if you look previous to when he got elected, I don't know that I ever heard him mention PCC.
During the election cycle, if I'm not mistaken, he put out that a video like debunking like almost preemptively some problems people had with PCC or perceived problems like navigating barricades. You remember that? Because he came out.
I do. I don't remember if that was after he got elected or before.
That was shortly before, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
I don't remember him running on PCC.
I don't either.
No. He didn't run on it for sure. No.
I think it was because it was unknown. It was going to have an impact. Like if people was going to catch on or not, I'm guessing would be an assumption. But yeah, I don't think he took a side on that, if I remember correctly.
I think he was always in favor of it. I just don't think it was an issue. I don't think it really was a campaign issue at all.
Yeah, like you said with finances, I mean, money fixes everything. So I think part of it was just like to draw more money in. So I'm guessing with PCC, like they saw participation. I mean, I'd be interested to have that conversation, but I'm guessing they see like, hey, a lot of people are shooting this division, so that makes us money. So we're going to encourage that thing that makes us money.
Well, this is what would have been nice to talk to him about.
I would have been curious to have that conversation.
Yeah, and maybe little devil's advocate. Let me be the guy who's not wild about PCC. Let me draw out. Let me be the mouthpiece for the common concerns you hear, like it's affected by matches, or I don't like the rules, or I don't like having to unbag into a berm. All that kind of stuff would have been more interesting with him, and let him counter these common complaints.
Yeah, well,
and I mean, he could have had a good explanation or something we hadn't thought of too. I mean, I would give him that benefit of the doubt, but that is a conversation I would have liked to have had for sure.
Well, Tyler, let me put it to you. I don't know if this is even really a complaint. It's just kind of the way it is. So I've been shooting a ton of club matches lately, all over the fucking place, tons of more than normal. I've shot about 4 years worth of club matches in the last 2 months. I went to a club match, I don't know, a while back. You'll see the talk through on training group, and this won't be hard for you to figure out which match it is eventually, okay? But I went to this club match, walked around and looked at the stages. It was a high round count match. A lot of spots where you're shooting maybe 20 rounds from one position without moving. I would say it was fairly low difficulty, the match, except for when it wasn't. And when it wasn't, it was pretty punitive. So there's like no partial targets anywhere to speak of, no nothing like that, except for one stage, which was Virginia count, of course, that sort of thing. And I walked around, and for the, I've been not liking the way that the stages are getting built in a lot of matches. It's been, I don't know if it's just my perception or whatever, but I walk around, and it's like, yeah, so I don't want to be here. In my heart, like I just didn't want to be there. I'm not trying to make a point or piss anybody off. I just didn't want to shoot the match, and I just wanted to go do something else. And then, the person I was with was like, well, I want to stay. I'm like, all right, fuck, I'll stay here and shoot it too. Like the stages look, you're shooting a bunch of rounds from one spot. It wasn't that interesting. I didn't like it. I was shooting production. I wouldn't have liked it anymore shooting limited. I just would have been bored. I'm just kind of setting the table for you to understand the situation. So again, I'm not trying to hurt with this. I didn't say anything to anybody. I wasn't like mad. I didn't bitch. I was just thinking like, I don't want to shoot this match or matches like this ever. Like, I just don't want to do this. It looks like a 3-gun match. You know what I mean? Like all the targets are just like together, and it's
arrays.
Like I said, yeah, it's like 20 rounds from one spot on like 10-yard paper targets. Not interesting to me at all. And in my opinion, it was probably the lamest club match I've ever shot, ever. And I don't think it was close. So I went away disappointed. I'm like, well, I don't really give a fuck. I'm just not going to shoot at that club. Fuck it. I'm not interested. There's a lot of PCC people there, a lot, including some like national talent. And I see on Instagram, nationally talented, like national level PCC person, like, hey, this is my favorite club match I've shot all year, 200 rounds. This is awesome. This person loved it.
I
didn't
saw
like
that
it.
post.
Right. I didn't like it. Not for me. PCC guy loved it. It's for him. And I look at that and I feel like that is kind of the trend in some places where there's no way that we're not both going to be happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that, like in a microcosm, that kind of, I guess that's the issue in many ways. You guys don't have PCC at your club, do you? Or you do? I can't remember. I'm thinking of Yantola they don't have rifles at his club.
Yeah, it's at all the Atlanta area clubs.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know. What would you say about that, Tyler? That's the kind of conversation you'd want to have with Mike, I suppose.
Yeah, we need to address, because it is a thing, we need to address the way, because it's really not a question of has it changed stage design. It's more a question of how, whether it's intentionally trying to screw PCC, or maybe the MD's a PCC guy and he really likes hoser, double-digit hit factor stages, and that's what you're going to get. Probably the most interesting avenue I hope to take this conversation was, let's look 5 years down the line. Is PCC still integrated with pistol matches? Have you and other leadership, maybe NROI or the board, discussed standalone PCC matches? Like, where are we heading? Because I had this discussion with someone else. We are in the infancy of PCC. Like, competitors, by and large, have barely scratched the surface of the platform, like performance with the platform. I fully expect that as it grows, I would think that PCC guys, the top level guys, are going to outgrow pistol challenges. At some point, when your skills develop, when the equipment matures, when they start making gas guns that run and, they feel like 22 shorts, like you put snake eyes on every target out to 50 yards, stuff like that. Like, PCC will outgrow handgun matches eventually. It could be argued that that time is now, but I wanted to ask him, and I think it's a good question, like, are we going to split these off at some point? Like, could it be its own discipline?
Well, I think you know the answer to that.
I do know the answer, but I would like to hear his answer.
Well, looking at the participation numbers, I mean, PCC is not going anywhere.
No,
it is obviously growing.
And I think it would be silly at this point to go to the one extreme, which is say we need to kick it out. We need to be done with PCC. Like, as much as I don't like it personally, as much as I just plain don't like it at handgun matches, the demand is there. It would be foolish in the extreme for USPSA to say we're not doing PCC anymore.
Yeah, like we don't want your money.
Yeah, I mean, it's dumb. People want to shoot it. It's keeping old guys in the game. It's keeping fat guys in the game. So, good for you. It's just, like I said, I think the challenges are going to be distinct. If I shot PCC, if that was my main thing, and I took it really seriously, I would want better challenges. I would want to shoot at 100 yards. I want to shoot movers at 50 yards. That would be interesting. Steel at mini popper at 75 yards, I don't think that the typical USPSA stage poses that much of a challenge to PCC. It's a pure drag race. It's all in who can navigate the stage the fastest, and it doesn't seem interesting to me. If you like it, I'm not trying to step on your toes or talk down your division choice. I mean, you go for it, buddy, but I don't know. I shot 2 club matches with it, and I was like, it's like playing Grand Theft Auto with cheat codes with unlimited ammo, like, all right,
It's fun for a little bit.
Yeah, but it's you defeat the challenge, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose. Well, anyway, kind of along those lines, Joel and I made a video about stage designs that we like and stage designs we don't like. I don't know if you saw that yet. We put up in training group.
Yeah.
Um,
It's in my queue to watch.
Yeah, so a lot of this is like, hey, we should have better, more interesting stages. But what I see, like, sort of as a long-term trend, a lot of the people think about this, Tyler. There are people that do like that, so they want to shoot the same matches you shoot, or like, how about a couple of the matches, a few of the matches I've recently attended, kind of where are the I would say close, like a lot of shots from one position, 15 shots from one position, 20 shots from one position. That's kind of been par for the course at some matches that I've been to lately. Where, and I don't mean 20 shots available only from one spot. I mean, if you walk through the stage, like the move is to stand in this spot and shoot 20. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you could say that the stage is legal. Like, I'm not talking about that. I mean, it's just the way it's set up is it's to your advantage to shoot 20 rounds from here, essentially without moving, and then go over there and then shoot 10 rounds from there. And then that's the long course is two positions, 20 and 10 or something. There's people coming in who like, hey, this is what it is. I like this. I want to do this. And I think that kind of constituency of people's has gotten bigger, not smaller.
No, you're absolutely right. Yes.
And like over the long term, what's that going to do for USPSA? Well, those people, they'll become match directors, they'll become range officers, they'll become range masters.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes.
Well, and not to only criticize, you know, I hate to complain, so I'll offer a solution maybe. What I think would be nice and is pretty feasible is level 2 and above. You know, pick your dividing line. It could be level 3 and above, but at the major match level, separate handguns and PCC. You know, run the Area 6 handgun match Thursday through Saturday, or Wednesday through Saturday, and on Sunday, or Sunday, Monday, whatever, you figure out the logistics, run the Area 6 PCC Championship. I think that might help a little bit.
All right. So that's an interesting topic for discussion, I would say, with Mike.
And that comes from you, because you've talked before about bifurcating the local and major levels, which I think is it's worthy of discussion.
All right. So what other stuff would you want to put to Mike if you were here, which you can't be because it's too busy?
I really wanted to talk to him about his vision for the sport. Again, I want a 5-year, 10-year plan. I want to know. I really want to delve into, how do you think about practical shooting? How do you think about USPSA as an organization, as a sport? I wanted to address the message he put out a while back. I don't know when it was, but you know, the one we've referenced before about, is it a sport? Is it an event? Is it
a hobby?
Yeah.
In that letter, I don't recall him taking a position on, is USPSA an activity, an event, or a sport? I don't think he took a position on that.
I believe his conclusion was it's all three.
Great.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, I don't want to, you know.
Well, that would be really not taking a position then, in my opinion.
No, yeah. I mean, it's true.
I would agree with you on that for sure, Tyler. It's like, I mean, it's no secret. I spent a lot of my free time practicing, training, traveling all over the country. I mean, I put a lot of my life, of my heart, I guess you'd say, into the sport. And so I would like to know what the vision or what the plan is to have it in 5 years, 10 years. Will it be around? What will it be? What does he have planned for the future? Because I mean, financially, physically, my time, I put a lot into the sport.
So,
I want to know where it's heading.
well, Tyler, this might give you a little insight into Mike's opinion on that. I think you'll remember he told me publicly. So Mike's opinion of me is that I'm not really much of a USPSA shooter at all, as you might recall, because I don't attend, I don't know, enough matches for him.
I believe the implication was you're a globe-trotting IPSC guy now, and you've pretty much abandoned USPSA, which I don't think is a very fair characterization. I mean, you tend to show up to the big matches and usually win them. So,
Well, I would say I spend my life is organized around training for and competing in practical shooting events. Like I organize my life around it. If I'm not an important guy, or if I'm not your audience for your organization, you know, I can't imagine who would be, but that's just me. Don't know.
But I really wanted to climb into his head, so to speak, because it's apparent to me that he has a vision for the sport, and he's been very diligent in executing that vision.
Why do you say that?
Well,
this should be you reading the tea leaves and reading between the lines. And just so, well, the audience and Joel are aware, you and I have not previously discussed this, I don't think. No, but you have a sense of this. See, this is why it'd be fun to have you talk to Mike. But your sense of this is that Mike has a vision and has been diligently carrying it out. If I'm reading what Mike is putting out in public, a lot of times it reads like Mike is reacting to events. Example, like, hey, IPSC's fucking with us, we should pull out of IPSC. Hey, there's this demand for PCC. Hey, guys, there's this issue going on with like production rules are fucked up and it's causing problems. We're gonna like change the way we're enforcing this. Mike seems very reactive, if you know what I mean. So like moves that get made, if you read what's put out, it appears reactive. But what you're saying is Mike appears to have a vision and is carrying it out, and those two things don't seem like they work together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think in his role, by the nature of his role, I think what you will see is the reaction a lot of times. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying about, I believe he has a vision and he's executing it. It's just, I don't know that I always know what it is. I mean, I can guess at it. And that was sort of the thing that bothered me a little bit, was that the things that have happened in USPSA in some instances between the beefs, like we talked about, is vastly different than what he campaigned on for his first term. And so I wanted to talk about, I want to understand, like, what are you thinking? Like, where do you see us going? Part of it is there's been a great emphasis on Steel Challenge in his first term. And a lot of that is Zach Jones. He's like the Steel Challenge czar. He's not a USPSA employee. He's just basically the guy in charge of Steel Challenge. And I think he's done a tremendous job of basically saving it and reinvigorating it. But I worry that on the whole, USPSA is trending towards being more like Steel Challenge as a sport.
Explain what you mean. So Steel Challenge, like what about Steel Challenge are we trending towards?
Steel Challenge is very accessible. The stages never change. There are, I believe, 13 or 14 divisions. It's one or the other.
There's very little movement.
Next to no movement. And if you choose, you cannot move and instead take a time penalty on the one stage that does require movement. But basically anyone can shoot Steel Challenge. And, I've gone to a few matches and you see kids there from like 6 or 7, up to the old fat guys. You can basically, any gun under the sun, that you have, you can shoot it.
Yeah.
You don't have to draw in the rimfire divisions and the long gun divisions. You start at low ready.
Yeah.
And
no mag changes on the clock. Yeah.
Nope.
Well, so
Nope.
so Tyler, USPSA becoming more accessible. Why is that bad?
It's not
You're
inherently
saying
bad.
it like it's bad, but why is
Yeah.
it bad?
It's not inherently bad. I think practical shooting growing is a nice thing. It's a good thing, and it's a necessary thing, for the whole next generation thing and all. But my concern, based on what I've seen and based on the actions of USPSA leadership, tell me that they are willing to sacrifice almost anything to grow participation. And there doesn't seem to be a whole lot sacred, or maybe I should say, it doesn't seem anything's off the table with USPSA as far as willing to.
I don't want to put words in your mouth. Would you say like bend to accommodate the requests? Would that be a fair way to say it?
That's a good way. That's better than the word I had in my mind, which was sacrifice. But yes,
No.
I think they're willing to. I don't think anything's off the table in an effort to accommodate people and drive up participation. And what I mean by that is a relaxation of equipment rules, maybe in the future relaxation of other rules or the way we do things, introduction of rimfire potentially. Not that that's come from headquarters, but that's been talked about in other forums.
Well,
I don't know that power factor is all that sacred to leadership.
Power factor and hit factor scoring are those are not sacred, I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would share your concern with that. Like I would say I would want USPSA to be its own thing. And if other vendors want to get on board and they want to build things to accommodate our sport, or they want to come out and they want to get involved, that's awesome. But if they ever wanted to, I would say, bend what the sport is to accomplish their vision, then I would say thanks, but no thanks. Maybe we have to part ways.
Well, you will
Would be my hope.
remember, I mean, just if this microcosm, this tiny event would sort of encapsulate what you're talking about, Tyler, in a fairly infamous example, your friend, and mine, Brian Hofer, caught a guy with an illegal hammer in his production gun, took enforcement action, moving the guy to open division, did this at a major match.
Yep.
Guy complained, and then USPSA, they say, hey, these rules are unenforceable. Nobody knows which hammer goes to which gun or anything like that. This is crazy. So this rule's unenforceable. We're kind of getting rid of it. We're not changing the rules. We're adjusting them so we can do this.
Yeah. The evidence of a rule being enforced properly and according to the rules was evidence that the rule was unenforceable. Hashtag logic. So.
Yes. Well, I would expect to see my expectation based on, the way things are going. I would expect power factor to kind of go away on some level, or at least people would like to do. There's a few people would like to do that.
Yeah. Oh, you see it all over the place. Like you talk about, you mentioned power factor going away, and you have, a sizable portion cheering that. So, yeah. And we'll roll back around to popular opinion because that'll come up again. I changed gears a little bit, but still connected. I think it's part of his vision, Mike's vision, to gain industry partners, to get sponsorships of USPSA, the organization itself. I think they've done a really nice thing with federal. That's cool. Like Syntec.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you can go get USPSA ammo, like off the shelf now, or you can order it from Brownells. It's got the logo on it. USPSA gets a royalty from that. I mean, that's good. That's a good partnership. But we also have an official timepiece of USPSA, if you recall. And I'll be honest with you, I don't understand that. Why do we have an official timepiece? Who does it benefit? That's not a rhetorical question. Who does that benefit?
I don't know.
Stuff like that, which
these would be interesting questions. We're going to run real fucking long. We're going to run long as fuck today, I can promise you. So let's move along. What other questions would you put to Mike?
Well, it's been done to death, but I wanted to ask him about production. I think it's a big deal. I think it's worthy of discussion. All we've got is the official word on high in board meeting minutes. I wanted to delve in. I want to talk about
why production changed.
Well,
Do you want me to tell you what I think, kind of reading the tea leaves?
Yeah.
Mike thinks production is stupid. Therefore, basically, production is it's essentially not going to be a thing. Let me put this question. I was going to read this later, but I'm going to read this question now, a podcast question that came in from a guy. To me, I've heard you advocate a trigger pull restriction a couple of times on the podcast. What is the rationale and what restrictions would you suggest? Sorry if this was explained and I missed it. So this is unrelated. Well, it's related to our discussion, but unrelated to Foley. It's just the guy sent this question because I think you heard me talking about this. And this kind of cuts to the core of what you want to talk about with production, right, Tyler?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll explain what I said and why. So in production is where ostensibly you go there to shoot, like I'm doing the air quotes, a real gun. You go there to shoot a real gun against other people, where it's like not some gunsmith tuned thing, or like even my limited gun is like quite honestly a gun that's not suitable to carry around with you, in my opinion. I think it doesn't make any sense. Even the flat followers in the magazines compromise the reliability. I think 40 caliber is sort of stupid to carry. I probably wouldn't piss around with a single action gun to carry. Things like this. So you go right down the list. Okay, so maybe a limited gun doesn't make much sense. An open gun is obviously sort of stupid to carry around with you and try to use it for some sort of an actual purpose, right? So if you want to shoot a real gun, whatever that means to you, whatever real gun is, so production is a division for real guns. Again, whatever that means. I'll tell you, the reason that I'm here, the reason I'm in USPSA is for production. I started shooting an IDPA with a Beretta. I was like, hey, this is cool. Guys can go buy Glocks or Berettas or SIGs or these CZ75 things that nobody uses and blah, 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 blah. We can just go buy these guns that people carry around with them. I started shooting, I don't think M&Ps were a thing. Maybe XDs were around, I don't remember, but those were the guns that you could go buy. And so I thought it was cool. I can go to a sporting goods store, buy a handgun, which is what I did.
And, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, bought a handgun at a sporting goods store and then very minimally fucked around with it and went and shot it in matches. And I thought that was awesome.
But also the ammo.
Yes,
I shot white box for 5-6 years of USPSA.
Yeah.
That. I mean, I didn't reload. It was relatively okay, I'm dating myself. When I started shooting white box 100 round packs, it was $10 at Walmart. So I'd go I'd buy 5 of those and I'd shoot 500 rounds in a weekend. It was $50, no big deal. So yeah, I mean, I didn't reload. It was a gun I could pick up something off the shelf. I started, this is not optimal, a Ruger P95, which is a double single Ruger. I know, but it was a $300 gun that I bought because I didn't have that much money, and I shot white box ammo because I I didn't have a reload. I could not afford a reloading setup. So it's a $300 handgun with ammo. I could buy it off the shelf and I could go shoot USPSA because I saw it at an indoor range. And I'm like, hey, this looks really cool. What are they doing? I want to get involved with this. If I would have had to have shot, like a limited gun or an open gun, I can't afford that. I don't reload ammo.
No, I once again, the reason I came to USPSA was for production. That's why I showed up.
Me too.
And when I started, I think I'm USPSA GM number 14 in production, something like that. Like I was fairly early to that thing. Like again, I came for that. And I'm like, this is cool. We're going to shoot a quote, like doing air quotes, real gun. So it has to fit inside of a box. Why? Because it has to be a reasonable size for me to carry around. You know what I mean? I can't modify it, it can't like change, like at the time you couldn't change parts. So it's like, if I shoot a Beretta, it's like I had to buy from Beretta an extended magazine release in order to be able to use my magazine release properly. You know what I mean? Like I had to get the parts from the company. It had to be a factory part. I couldn't like file on the magwell like you can now. All those sorts of things. I couldn't even change the trigger to the external over travel stop trigger that Langdon sells, the LTT trigger. I couldn't have that because it's not a factory part. And like some of those restrictions are arbitrary and stupid, but it was to say, hey, it has to be a real gun. It can't be like there has to be a certain number produced and blah, 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 blah. It has to fit in this thing. You're not allowed to fuck around with the trigger a lot. Anyway, so to cut to this guy's question that he asked, the reason that you would have a trigger pull restriction, a weight restriction, is because it's a very easy enforcement mechanism as opposed to looking at and knowing what the components are when you're inspecting the gun. Instead of that, you just check how hard the trigger is and you're like, hey, is this like a street trigger? Is this would it be sort of responsible to carry this around with you? Or would it not be? If it's a 2 pound, if you're carrying around a Glock with a 2 pound trigger, like somebody listening to this, like for your carry gun, I'm sorry, you're an idiot. Like that is a stupid thing to do. Don't do that. They carry have a little bit heavier trigger, like, that sort of stuff. So again, production's why I came to this thing. And it makes me a bit sad to see it getting kind of gutted.
Yeah,
unfortunately. And
it's the only division I've ever shot.
And I played my part too. Like I was a guy shooting a double single Beretta back before that was cool. And I guess that's cool again now. I don't know, but and then like doing okay with double action guns. And then once we me and a couple other guys switched to steel framed double single guns, then it was on. Like that changed production a lot, where people started switching to those guns. All right. But the situation we have now is that we really don't have, like, production's just sort of silly now. It's like it's not so much for street guns. It's,
Well, I don't think we know what production is. And that was the heart of what I wanted to address was, back in 2009, I'm looking at it now, the USPSA Board of Directors issued what's titled a Statement of Direction for the Production Division Equipment Rules. And they painstakingly went through and they defined what is a production gun? What is the purpose of this division?
Was it pretty much what I outlined there?
Yeah, I mean, the title is The Production Division was created to be a division for stock pistols with very limited modifications allowed. The broad intent of the production division remains intact to provide an equipment category where stock or nearly stock guns can compete on a relatively level playing field, and a desire to have the division remain viable for typical carry suitable guns. And the 2009 edition of the Board of Directors thought it was important to specifically lay out what is production, what does that mean, what are we trying to accomplish, and what are we trying to exclude. And somewhere this changed, whether overtly or just, it kind of fell apart over time. I wanted to really delve in with Mike and what is production? What does that mean to you? Do we have an intent anymore What does that look like? I wanted to talk about, is that even a way we should conceptualize divisions? Because the way I think of it is we have divisions for a purpose. We have drawn lines. They're not entirely arbitrary. To me, if you look at it from big picture, single stack is for 1911s, easy. Revo is for Revos, easy. Production is for the stock or nearly stock gun. Limited is just a little bit racier, and open is racy. Anything you want.
Well, the big difference also between production and limited is that in production you shoot minor competitively.
Yeah. And it's low cap. I think that's an inherent part of it. It doesn't have
Well,
to
how
be.
about this? It's not like, for me, like what happens in limited is I get magazines because I'm shooting a production gun essentially in limited.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I shoot essentially the same gun in limited.
Yeah.
Okay. So I get factory magazine tubes. Many people who shoot carry optics do this as well. I throw an aftermarket base pad on there that's like $40. You throw that on there, and then I put in a different set spring and follower kit, and this bumps up the capacity. Like when they looked at production, they're like, well, yeah, we could set whatever mag length limit we want, but we think that's sort of stupid. So we're just going to say it's a number. And that way everybody has a gun that works in there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's not going to be, you don't have to buy more crap to shoot your gun. It's like you know.
Yeah. But I mean, 2009 was 10 short years ago, and it's gone. I mean, we flipped it on its head, whereas
I think the blow up then was like Vanek triggers, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was what did it is somebody had a trigger that would sit in a different spot, and it was it was an externally visible modification. You could see that they'd fucked around with the trigger, and that was like a big deal. Can you imagine that now? Like nobody would care.
Nobody that would notice.
But that's it. It is a fundamental change to production and to the ideals, and I just wanted to address that. Like, what's the impetus? Can you define the purpose, or can you define production today in 2019? If the board were to redo that same project again today, what would it look like, and what would be the rationale?
That's
basically
a fascinating question.
Yeah, and I'm not convinced that they could. I don't know that they could.
No, it would.
I don't know that they know what production is.
No, not at all. That form.
Yeah, I mean, and I drew, I looked at all this stuff.
The withdrawal from IPSC arrow was kind of fun too. You should have.
Yeah, that was. I'm sure that would have come up. I had the original list for the interview, but I threw it away like 2 weeks ago because I knew it wasn't going to happen. But but I drew some conclusions at the end of this. Like you mentioned a few podcasts ago that it seems like we're trying to be all things to all people.
Yeah.
And I alluded to this, a few minutes ago, which is I don't see anything that they're not willing to sacrifice, anything that's not on the table to drive participation. When you see posts from the USPSA Facebook page or the website or anything like that, they tout numbers. Everything is participation. I think that's the only metric of success they're interested in. And to their credit, numbers are going up, up, up. I mean, we're at record this, that, the other. But that's all we're talking about is quantitative stuff instead of qualitative. I mean, I'm hearing no one talk about improving, nationals. How can are there competitive equity issues that remain unaddressed that we need to tackle, like proper calibration?
Yes, I would have enjoyed that conversation very much. Just like rules, where are we going?
Let's bring it back to between the beefs. Like, what can we do better? But everything is numbers, and it's my impression and my feeling like this is increasingly becoming a sport for Joe Blow off the street, and they are trying to bulldoze down any barriers that could possibly keep someone from participating, at the expense of, our division rules. Higher competitive goals, like, not to sound, elitist GM, but I think it's increasingly becoming not a sport for serious guys, like, who invest, all their time, all their money, all their energy, all their thoughts into this. Like,
you don't want it to be casual. Yeah, because you put so much of your effort and your time and your money and like your soul into the sport. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's it. And, every move is to dumb it down. It's not to make it better. It's to dumb things down. Like, you want a gas pedal on your production gun? Why not? It's a takedown lever. It's just stuff like that. Like,
right. All right. All right, Joel. I have an email from a listener I wanted to read, but Joel's begging me not to read it.
I think you should read it.
No, we're not going to.
Come on.
Sorry. You can get it sent to you later.
Yeah. It's just disappointing. To sum it up, it's disappointing that every move is made to the lowest common denominator. Like, let's make things better, not just, at a certain point, you're going to outgrow, the sport has a carrying capacity. And if you drive it up, like, we've already got like 13, 15 man squads. Like, what are you going to do with these people?
Well,
and that's a good problem to have.
It's a good problem to have if you can raise supply to meet demand.
I think I compared it to movies. You know what I mean? It could be like a Disney movie, which that's not bad. We went to see one, Joel and I went to see one last night. We went and saw Spider-Man.
Yeah, it was delightful.
It was delightful. And there's people of all ages there, and everyone's having an okay time. You know what I mean? Like, it has very broad appeal, but it's never going to scratch the itch for me that some, heavy R-rated comedy or some brutal action movie or more. I mean, it doesn't scratch the same itch. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And those other more narrow, those other movies have a more narrow audience, but they scratch an itch that the broad appeal stuff never is going to scratch. And USPSA, having broader appeal, that just, like you and me and Joel here, like the guys that kind of organize their lives around training for this and getting better for this. Like, it doesn't like get me excited to train for, hey, we're going to be like squirting arrays fast, like up close or something, like trying to drive down the stage times as far as we can and getting the hit factors. The stage is designed so the hit factors are high enough so that I'm going to go run through there with my limited gun, and I literally don't care how many C's I have because the hit factors are so high, it doesn't matter. It's like time attack. Or maybe getting rid of power factor entirely and then just, shooting the stuff the way it is, or getting rid of whatever other rules. Like that stuff interests me less. It's not that it's not fun. It's just like, I don't spend my life training for that, Is that a good way to summarize your feelings? Because I think we see eye to eye on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's kick it over to Joel.
Okay.
Joel,
yes, I'm here.
What are we talking about today? You and I. Well, you've got a topic. You're not involved in this election nonsense.
No.
You're a nice guy. You don't talk crazy, do you?
I'll be honest. I don't care a ton.
Who'd you vote for, Joel? If you're comfortable sharing.
I'm not comfortable sharing. I couldn't care less about that crap. I'm honestly concerned, to go back to just briefly, like, say my piece. I would be concerned about where the sport's going because I invest so much of like you said, like my day off is like my shooting. My day off is planned around my personal training.
Yeah, and your job is to make money so you can shoot.
Yeah. No, seriously. Like dry fire. When am I going to have time today to dry fire? Like I plan, like, like, it gets to sound so cheesy, like, all my time, money, soul, energy, whatever it is something that's really important to me that I like a lot. And I don't want to put all of my energy, all of my focus, soul, whatever, into something that's going to be extinct in 5 years or turn into something I don't want to. I don't want it to be, or that would dilute it, or, that kind of thing. So yeah, I would like to know where things are heading to. Anyway, that's my piece about it. But I find that very interesting. So Ben and I can kind of share a topic.
Yep, we're sharing a topic now.
Yes. So this would be literally this week in shooting, like the last five days. The last 5 days in shooting.
Is it really? Shit.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, Joel and I have been training with Gaston.
Which has been awesome.
Gaston's not on the podcast now. Terribly sorry about that, but he'll be on training group content. So for training group members, they're gonna see Gaston. It just didn't work out. I don't want him here right now, because after this we have to do stuff that Gaston's personality is not good for.
Well, it's his bedtime too. I mean, he was tired.
Yeah, he was very tired.
So anyway, we've done a lot of training, and so I just kind of wanted to talk about like the method that we've done for training, and I think it's been very successful. So every day we use at Ben's range, we use 2 bays. So we have a stage setup and we have a drill setup. So we've been doing 2-a-days for the last 2-3 days, whatever, 2 or 3 days, where we go out in the morning, we shoot, I don't know, 3 hours, something like that, a couple hours whenever everybody's just tired, smoked, go eat lunch, relax a little bit, which is a place within, I don't know, 10 minutes of the range, 5 minutes, and then we head back out and go hard again in the afternoon, which has been a lot of fun. So we change each day, we alternate. Somebody's going to set up a stage. That's what they want to do, a different test of skills. So it's those rules where maybe you could see everything from one position, but it's like this morning, it's like, hey, you're going to stand on this stick. You have to shoot these 3 targets from this position. I don't care the order, they have to come here. You're going to go between these 2 barrels. Here's this open spot. Here's this one piece of steel and this paper. This has to come from here. You have to run around this side of the barrel, or this, imagine this is a wall. You have to go around this stick. And so it's been very interesting. Then everybody shoots that cold. You get a couple runs. And then we're talking as a group, like, how do you think you could drive down the time? What's better? Or we had, like, the first day I was thinking about where it was my stage I set up. There was a second position where there was a tuxedo and a piece of steel. So I was like, well, which one do you want to come in on? Well, maybe you feel better coming in on the tuxedo or the steel. And as we got done, like, yeah, we decided like the steel was the way to do it, to come in on that. So I've learned a lot just in bouncing ideas off them. We played a little bit of time attack with Ben and Gaston, like how fast can you make this go? What was your time on the draw? Yeah, that wasn't fast. I think you could just rail the draw a little bit harder. What about, let's try shooting this on the move. Can you make this shot on the move? Maybe does it make any sense? Yes or no? And like, just to see what we could end up with, which I enjoyed that quite a bit. So, and then for the other part, a drill. So I'll set up something, different, where like today it was transition with partials. We did it strong hand, weak hand, and freestyle. And we shot one-handed enough where then shooting two-handed felt like it was cheating, to be honest. But I think that was really good, just to learn off them, run stuff past Gaston. Like, hey, what do you think about this? And so, yeah, thought it was educational.
Yeah, this is not unusual for me, by the way. I frequently have friends here for training, and we'll have different people run the training, and I like doing that. I'm sure you'll be participating for the training group summit, Tyler. Third weekend, July 2020, by the way, listeners, if you're training group members, you want to come to the summit.
Yeah. So what would you have to say about it? Ben, did you, anything that you thought was interesting or that you learned this week watching us?
I learned, well, I always learn. I'm a learner. I think it was kind of fun watching. So let me put it this way: Joel's strength is not in what Gaston does really well. So Gaston's one of the best snipers anywhere, as far as he would call himself a sniper, like shooting, like shoots 25-yard partial targets, no problem, like nobody's business. The guy, like when he's not pushing at all, like pushing to shoot a fast time. And by that, I mean, he's still fast. He's not
shooting comfortably.
Yeah. When he shoots comfortable pace, comfortable match pace, he just doesn't miss. I mean, it doesn't really matter how hard the targets are. And it's, so putting Joel up against Gaston on the same stages, it was interesting watching Joel climb up to a higher level just by virtue of being, I don't know, just feeling beat down. I mean, and it's good, right? I mean,
Yeah.
shooting, it's kind of like when I shoot with guys that are fast, it makes me faster. When I shoot with, guys that can do things well that I'm not good at, it makes me better at that thing. I was kind of watching that happen.
Or I was thinking about even that
Guys.
transition drill we did. What was it this morning?
Yeah.
It was this morning. Yeah, where I set up like, hey, you're gonna transition. There was a no shoot on every target. So
Well,
they're all
that you're very good at, Joel. Anyway, Joel's good at fast transitions and close range shooting.
Yeah.
He's good
So
at that.
I shot in all alpha time. It was 8 shots, 4 targets. And it was an order that didn't make any sense. You drew to the close target that I could shoot very, very quickly, a partial target. You had to transition all the way to the left, all the way to the right, and then finish on like a far target in the middle. That was just the goofy order for that, whatever. So Ben was over messing around with Gaston. So I shot it 3 runs or so. I produced a time for like I won't say I shot so deliberately to get all alphas. I mean, some Charlie, yeah, maybe it happened, but I was trying to shoot very much in control and not just squirting. So I established a time, and it was like, hey, Ben, around 5 seconds, give or take. That's the time for this.
Cool. Yeah.
So I'm like, I want to know how I stack up to Ben. Ben's warmed up. He goes over and he hurts my feelings. Ben's in low 4s. Yeah. 415, something like that. So I'm like,
but that pushes you up to a higher level.
So that I'm like, what the hell? Like this should be my jam. Like there should not be that much of a deficiency. So then I get angry. So then, Ben gets done and I go up again. And then what was the next time I think I was at 4.6.
Yeah.
Something like that. 4.5. Yeah. And I still had the hits. I was just like, oh, this is not this is not going to stand, man. So yeah, then I got after it harder, and then I was still getting the alphas. I wasn't out of control by any means, but I watched Ben do it. I'm like, well, that needs to be better. So yeah, that was while still being in control and not hopers, where I was shooting run back to back to back. You take control of the camera.
I don't want the camera.
Oh, whatever. But by shooting 3 or 4 strings, none of them hopers,
Well,
all of them patterning.
But the idea is shooting with other people. It gives you an audience. It gives you accountability, especially if they're good shooters. So I find that very helpful. And there's always an exchange of ideas and information, because everybody brings something different to the table. Even if they're not very good, they're going to have a different idea or a different way of looking at things. So it's always good training with other people.
And the stage, I liked just seeing how I stacked up to you guys. Like, what's the time difference? Yeah, just like knowing how I compare was valuable to me too.
Yeah.
So
anyway, what do you have to say about that, Mr. Tyler?
I have nothing to add other than I'm extremely jealous. It sounds awesome.
You need to quit your job or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just holding me back. But no, one thing you said, Joel, was interesting. Like, I've done that before where like I'm warmed up and I do, my match pace run. I was like, or even maybe on the edge of ability, what I think is the edge of ability. And I go out and say, yeah, there's no topping that without becoming out of control. And so I just do a fast run just to see. And every time, you shoot it, you're a couple tenths faster, a second, whatever the range is. And the points are basically the same. Maybe, an additional Charlie or 2, depending on what you're running. But you astonish yourself every time that what you took for granted would be out of control would be. And it's just not. It just opens up so much. Like, very few of us, I think, are really at the edge when we think we are. I guess is the moral of the story.
Yeah, I'm a visual learner too. So when YouTube, whenever I was putting stuff on, like YouTube, or now it'd be Instagram. But when I see somebody like doing the high speed ninja stuff, which I would say like sub-second draws, loads, doing like a sub 2 4 aces, which I'm sure people are aware. We draw the gun, you shoot 2 alpha, reload the gun and shoot 2 alpha. Then I'm like, what's your time? I don't know. And I'd do it in something. Here's my time. But then seeing somebody do that online, that makes it more like believable to me. So, okay. All right. So, Ben's distracting me. I apologize. So, but seeing that makes it more. If Ben would have said, "I want you to draw in a second," that go, and then maybe at the time my draw was a 1-5. Well, that's a big difference. Then once I watch somebody, it's like, oh, if he can do that, I can do that. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, seeing them shoot fast, I would say I rose to the occasion. I'm not saying I beat them, but it definitely made me sharper or better. Just seeing it done, like, oh, if they can do it, I can do it. We'll try to close the gap. So, yeah. So anyway, Ben's, I don't know, on his phone. So Tyler, what do you want to talk about?
Oh, no, I feel like the podcast is kind of wrapped up.
Oh, okay.
We went an hour 20, so that's
Oh.
great.
Hey.
All right. Well, all right. I'm sorry about the length of the podcast, everyone.
You should be.
I'm a little sorry. I'm not really. But all right. If you have a question you want the answer to, go to benstecker.com.
You forgot to say this was a bang up podcast.
I don't know if it was a Bang Up podcast.
Oh, maybe it
That's
wasn't.
okay. If you have a question you want the answer to, go to benstecker.com. Send me your question. We'll probably talk about it. Maybe we won't. I don't know. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Now you say you
say
need a
we'd love-
catchphrase. You'd be like,
We'd love to hear from you.
You need to be Joel
You didn't
out.
say I'd love to hear from
You
you.
need to be Joel out, fuckers, like or something like that.
That is not going to happen.
Say it.
No,
All right.
sorry.